Okay, so Boyfriends won the poll. That's a webtoon, so let's get a look here. Let's see how long it is. There it is, okay. Fuck my ass. The gays are okay. Look, I don't really care if somebody's gay or not, or LGBT or whatever these days. You know how it is. You do you, boo boo, you know. If you want to be called zippy dippy doo, I mean, come on, that's a little bit silly, but fine, you're zippy dippy doo, you know. You do you, boo boo. There is LGBT literature out there, right? Now, as a straight TM, I haven't really read much of that, especially what is known as yaoi or boys love, or often shortened to BL, or as I like to call it, gay boys. Because that's what it's about. It's about gay boys. I'm not the target demographic for that, and in actuality, the target demographic for that genre is actually heterosexual women, often referred to as fujoshi, which is a Japanese term meaning rotten girl, roughly translated. I mean, there was a whole debate in the iceberg videos about the definition of that word, but we're just going to move past that. Now, I haven't really entertained the genre, but I have enjoyed a romance from time to time. I have read a yuri every once in a while, which is basically the lesbian equivalent. My problem with yaoi, other than the nightmarish proportions, we're going to be talking about that in the bonus tier in the iceberg series. Check out that series over here in the card. The thing that kind of puts me off to the whole yaoi genre isn't the gay boys, alright? I don't care about that. If the story's good, it's good. It's the R-wordy nature of it that I've seen some of it out of context. Like, it seems a little R-wordy, you know what I mean? But I don't know about this one. Will, however, be entering the genre of yaoi with this webtoon, or I guess BL, boys love, whatever. And from what I've seen, it might not be a good first impression of the genre, but we'll check it out anyway. Now that we covered the genre and my approach here, and got ahead of any comments that might pop up, we're going to get right into the story. Okay, so Boyfriends is a webtoon by artist/writer Refrainbow. This series has become a bit notorious, and honestly, I don't know why. I've seen several thumbnails across YouTube for reviews on this series, and they all seem to say that the series isn't very good. I, however, am completely unfamiliar with it, so I'm going in about 99% blind. I have seen a handful of panels from it. That's about it. Now, before I even begin the review, I got a bone to pick with webtoon, okay? I fucking hate the infinite scroll format. I hate it so much. It completely bastardizes the art of comic book page layout, which honestly is something I really want to make a full deep dive video on, so make sure you subscribe for that in the future. But the webtoon format points viewers' eyes down and only down. There are some occasions when you might get 2 panels, but that's about it. You can easily post a traditionally formatted comic on the internet and have the readers understand it. Now, I do get that these are mostly meant for phones, and I get that, but it's still depressing to this graphic design major, you know? But Webtoon's formatting is not what I'm here to talk about today. It's this somewhat infamous comic, Boyfriends. One of the comments on the poll called it not that bad, just a gay fluff comic. Now, I don't know what the commenter meant by gay fluff, but I guess we'll find out. First impressions based on episode 1. I kind of like the art style. It's very soft and the colors are more on the pastel and vibrant side of things. The character designs are clearly legible and the layout is easy to read, as it should be in the infinite scroll format, but the art, as always, will get its own section after the story. So, this ascot dude is complaining to this goth guy that he can't get a boyfriend. Goth dude approaches a nerd guy and gets his number in 5 seconds after he artistically gushes about his favorite anime. He then gloats to the ascot dude. We then learn that goth dude's name is literally goth. I'm guessing that Refrainbow named the characters after their aesthetics, which, come on, that's a bit lazy, but a pretty straightforward introduction. Apparently goth only goes to class 5 times per semester. I'm guessing Refrainbow isn't familiar with how college works because you can actually get kicked out for doing that. Goth is also a Nintendo fan, which is cringe. Very cringe. But we're just going to move on to the rest of this comic. So, in Chapter 2, or as the webtoon calls it, Track 2, we follow the ascot guy who is named as Prep in this chapter, and he bumps into some jock guy, who I'm almost certain is going to be named Jock. Come on, Refrainbow, you couldn't come up with names? Anyway, Jock flirts with Prep, and Prep isn't seeing it because we have the classic dense protagonist trope. And later he was like, OMG, was that you flirting with me? Oh my god! So chapter 3 has Jock hitting on Nerd in the first two panels, and he dedicates a basket of the ball variety to him and accidentally hits some dude off screen. Jock gets his ass beat, then Nerd kisses his boo-boo. Question for any gays watching this video, coming from a straight TM that doesn't understand this. Do you guys just know who's gay, or do you have to do some digging? Like, is the gaydar a real thing? I don't know. I just find it weird that this seems to be taking place on a big college campus and we haven't run into a single straight. But then again, this has been described to me as a gay fluff comic, so why am I looking so much into the world building? Anyway, so chapter 4, we're in Prep and Goth's dorm. Prep is kicking Goth out because they're gonna have a party, and I guess he thinks Goth is cringe. He immediately pulls Goth back in due to the awkward interaction with Jock, who's at the party, and holy shit, is that a girl? What is a female doing in my gay boy comic? Anyway, Prep is awkward and goes off in the corner to drink, and Goth is just apathetic so far. I think Goth might be my favorite character so far. One thing I do gotta knock it for so far is the use of shorthand text message language. In text message form, shorthand like you instead of YOU and the like are perfectly acceptable, but this is something you're trying to get people to read. They're in the mindset of, I want to sit down and read something, not, let's just communicate this information as fast as possible. It's a minor gripe, but it's at a point where I can't not bring up this annoyance. It's just a bit of a nuisance is all. Track 5, as it were, continues the story, as it does. Jock is concerned about Prep's weirdness, but decides to hit on Goth. And I gotta say, Jock's kind of a man whore, huh? Goth takes the aggressive approach and does the classic slam hand on wall trope you see all the time in romance manga. There's actually a Japanese word for it, kabadon. Don't say I never taught you nothing. Then they go to play in Prep's room, and we have another classic trope of their conversation sounding sexual, but when Prep opens the door, it turns out they're just playing Jenga. Lots of pulling out and putting in that game. Next chapter, the party ends. Prep whines about being single, and Goth comforts him. That's about it. Apparently, it turns out Goth is revealed to be a trans man in this one, I think from this panel. Shout out to the comments on the webtoon, because that one went right over my head. But other than that, kind of a dull chapter. Moving on. Alright, chapter 7 is just Goth and Nerd's date. Honestly, kind of wholesome. Not much of note here, just kind of cute. The next chapter is just part 2 of the date. The only thing of significant note is that it turns out that Nerd is really into hentai.
Hentai?
Hentai is brilliant.
So, Nerd wakes up to his neighbors playing Twice really loud. Twice is a K-pop group. I'm rather unfamiliar with K-pop, but if I have any K-pop listeners here, I have a question. Who the fuck is Stan? Anyway, as far as my familiarity with K-pop, I think I heard a Blackpink song I liked once. This one. I like her. That's my bias or whatever. I don't know. That's a foreign language to me. Anyway, Nerd scores the date with Jock, and I guess these guys are polyamorous or just manhos. I guess we'll find out. Chapter 10 is just Prep bumping into Jock and being awkward a lot. I guess I'm starting to empathize a little bit with Prep here. We've all been awkward at one point or another. For these 4 main dudes so far, I've ranked them from worst to best: Jock, Nerd, Prep, Goth. But we'll see how this story develops and see if my opinion changes. So, at this point, I became curious as to why this webtoon has received so much flack, so I started digging, and one of the first things I came across was a Duchess Celestia video, who's great, love her stuff. No relation to the deity in my fictional fantasy world Doomsayer. I swear that's a coincidence, and I started Doomsayer before I found her channel. So, I watched her video, and basically, some people don't think this work of fiction that you should obviously enter with the suspension of disbelief is a good representation of gay men. Now, listen, as someone from the outside looking in, I do think this comic is a little bit absurd in its depictions, but I do understand that it's a work of fiction, nor do I think it was meant to be taken as a serious work. It's just about guys being dudes.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
It's not Citizen fucking Kane, you know? I do, however, think there's often times where LGBT characters are tokenized and not done well. I refer you to my Comicsgate video for a segment on that. But I wasn't going in with the mindset of, oh, this needs to be depicted a certain way or else it's bigoted. Like, look, dude, various people exist in this world of all walks of life, and some of them actually are like goth and prep, you know? This isn't deep literature. So there were actually 3 controversies around Reframebo, and honestly, only one of them's a little bit of a yikes. Okay, so the first one is they said the N-word when they were a teenager. Now, as someone who was once also an edgy teenager, I think this is forgivable. They even publicly apologized about it. A lot of people say shit that they don't believe now a long time ago, you know? But unfortunately, we live in a time where the internet is forever. I'm eternally grateful my edgy teenage years were on obscure anonymous forums around special interest boards, you know? Man, back when the internet was very based. Now it's very cringe. Good old days. I am quite old if you haven't been able to suss that out yet. The other thing is apparently they said some anti-Semitic comments, allegedly, but in context it was actually in favor of Jewish people. Look, man, at the time of recording this with everything going on in the Middle East, I'm just going to walk right away from that, okay? Hate bad, war bad too. Please stop. Can't we all just get along? Alright, and the big one is apparently at a certain point, Reframebo drew NSFW artwork of a member of BTS when that member was a minor. Great, we got another Shad man. Can't get away from him. Why does he keep coming back? So apparently Reframebo themselves was a minor at the time, so that softens the blow, but like, you know, I don't know. I don't know, boss. So, yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Kind of feels like a massive nothing burger to me, but hey, if you can't read a webcomic about characters literally named after cliches because of it, you're welcome not to. So, back into it, I guess. Oh, and one thing I want to add to this conversation about the whole concept of this comic, quote-unquote, fetishizing gay men, is that the word fetishize gets thrown around, like, ridiculously these days to the point where it's like you're just saying something to get angry for no reason. Like, I saw this, it's from 4chan, so maybe it's like the guy's fucking around, but still at the same time, I'm at that point where I'm like, I don't understand. It's like, oh my god, it's like Square Enix has a adult woman fetish. Oh, I guess I do have a fetish, huh? Also, what game is this? Because there are 2 big reasons I am sold. Anyway, look, man. You know, somebody's always going to have a problem with something, and there's always going to be at least one guy that says, fuck you, you know? On every one of my videos, there's going to be at least one dislike. I could make the perfect video, and one person is going to dislike it, you know? That's always going to be how it is, alright? I think that's all I have to add in the post-edit here. Yeah. It's kind of dumb. All these controversies are a little weird and dumb. Except for that one time he drew spicy stuff of a minor. As a minor, but still, I don't know. Anyway, controversies aside, let's get back into reviewing the actual comic. Chapter 11 has Prep musing his awkwardness. Nerd approaches him and gives him a bit of a confidence boost. So, from the synopsis of the webtoon before I started reading it, I'm under the assumption those 4 are eventually going to start a polyamorous relationship. Personally, I'm a monogamy kind of guy, but I do find it kind of interesting to read about alternative lifestyles, sort of a window into a different world, you know? And hey, if that's how you want to live your life, go for it, you know? I do hope, however, that this inevitable polyamorous relationship creates some actual conflict, because I'm starting to understand what the commenter meant when they said fluff. And speak of the devil, because in Chapter 12, Nerd suggests to Goth that they should try a polyamorous relationship with Jock and Prep. So they... What are these names? Apparently they do have actual names, but they're only referred to by these nicknames in the comic, whatever. So they make plans to meet. So in the next chapter, they meet up and Prep is awkward and runs away like a little bitch. Something Goth rubs in probably my favorite panel so far. I like this one. Awkwardly, Jock and Prep leave and Nerd and Goth start making out in public, right in front of the waitress. Now I'm starting to see how some people said that this comic contains the portrayal of negative homosexual stereotypes. The biggest thing that people push back on in those pride parades are the public displays of degeneracy. Obviously, this does not apply to the entire LGBT community, but this is one of those negative stereotypes. So we'll see if it gets worse, but then again, like I said in the previous segment, it's just a gay romance comic. It's not Citizen fucking Kane, I should also note that in the comments section of this webtoon, there are like a metric fuckton of deleted comments. Like a metric fuckton. I wonder if they're getting reported, deleted by Reframe Bro, or just deleted by the user. I'm curious as to why so many comments were deleted. If you guys watching know why, tell me in the comments. Anyway, Jock and Prep discuss Prep's awkwardness and resolve that character arc. They proceed to make out, but at the very least, they're in the bathroom and not out in the open like Nerd and Goth. They make plans to go to the arcade. They go to the arcade, and the couples of Jock and Prep and Goth and Nerd are clearly defined. Not much else happens in this chapter. We're already at the end of chapter 15, and I'm still waiting for some kind of interesting conflict to unfold. But we have 185 chapters to go. How to tie a noose. Goth and Nerd are playing video games and then proceed to do the thing. Annoying Prep, who just woke up. There's also a brief mention of Nerd's disappointment that they didn't ask Jock and Prep about polyamory. I'm starting to get a bit bored with this story. It feels like it's dragging its feet, but we'll stick through it. Admittedly, this is a problem that a lot of romances have, is feet dragging, where the author just kind of headed out a little bit too much. I understand the dramatic tension and build-up, right? But sometimes it's just filler. Jock and Prep go on a coffee date, and we get a cliche failed hand-holding scene with a touch of self-awareness. Prep awkwardly tries to show Jock his affection, and to be honest, I'm starting to like Prep a little bit more. Honestly, I feel for the guy. He's just trying to be affectionate, but he's just a bit of a klutz, you know? And now that Jock's had more screen time, I'm bumping him up in my ranking. I think Nerd is the worst character out of the four now. So, Prep buys Nerd, who's dyed his hair since last time, a new shirt for the recent incident. It's obvious Prep realizes he likes Nerd in this chapter, but this is a romance. So he can't just accept that and needs to drag it out a few more chapters, probably. My main issue with the webtoon so far is how tropey it is. And sure, some tropes are evergreen and fine and acceptable, but if you've read a few, you've read them all. Personally, I like when there's a little twist on the genre, or when there's some kind of narrative building in the background. Boyfriends is just a little generic, minus the polyamorous homosexual relationship aspect, but hey, I do like the art, you know? Lots of pretty colors. Love the colors in this comic. Really good color theory. But again, art's going to get a separate segment. So then we see Jock teaching Nerd that twice dance. Not much happens in this chapter, and that seems to be a minor problem here. I understand that this is categorized as a slice of life, which are stories where things don't necessarily happen, but I'm dreading the remaining 180 chapters. How does this go that long? This is the one piece of slice of life homosexual polyamory, which I suppose is an extremely niche genre, but what I mean by that is that it feels long just to be long. And no, I'm not reading One Piece. Hottest take of all time. It's not the length, it's the art. I don't like Oda's art. Okay, there, I said it. Sorry. You can like it if you want to, but I don't. Anyway, as I await your comments on that hot take, it's time to do another segment to break this video into a more digestible format. And also to help me with the editing. Hey, did you guys know that there's a Discord server now for my channel? Or viewers, I guess. It's completely public, no paywall or anything. Link in the description and all that. And yeah, just check it out if you just want to chat or share some art. That's the main thing I wanted to do. I just want the community to share some art with each other. You know, maybe give a little critique to one another. That kind of thing. And I think I might do one of those quote-unquote art roasting videos, but I need submissions. So I'm going to add a new tab before this video goes up over there where you can submit them, and I will take a look at it and try to give you guys some advice. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to do the whole Sam Does Arts things where it's just like, fan's so funny, here's how you fix it, draw exactly like me, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's over there. And actually, I think maybe at some point in the future, maybe when the channel gets a little bit bigger, maybe we'll do user-submitted comic reviews, if you guys make indie comics yourself. That might be kind of fun. I do one too, you know, if you haven't noticed. I plugged it like twice. You can read that link in the description. Just throwing it out there that there's a Discord server now, and, you know, just want to engage with the community. But if I do encounter any shenanigans on there, I will nuke the whole thing without a second thought. Okay, so keep it civil, keep it polite, you know, keep it PG, all right? And PG-13. All right. Anyway, back into this gay boy comic. Nerd learns the K-pop dance and Jock lusts over him. Goth shows up and there's some build-up towards the inevitable polyamorous relationship. Jock and Prep see each other and try to distract themselves from their lustful desire to be unfaithful. Goth interrupts them. Classic romance trope. So in the next chapter, Jock realizes he's a cuck, and Goth explains that him and Nerd are interested in the polyamory thing. He's also smoking inside. Not cool, bro. So in chapter 24, Jock and Prep talk about trying the polyamory thing with Goth and Nerd. Not much else happens in this chapter. So the four of them discuss their intentions and decide to try polyamory. It's also noted that none of them have experience with this type of relationship. This chapter also has this panel which actually did get a laugh out of me. You know, usually I do prefer the romances where it's a story of the couple meeting and developing their bond before entering into a romantic relationship, more so than ones where it starts when they're already together, but I feel like this one could have benefited from skipping all that. Like I said earlier, it feels like it's dragging its feet a little too much. But that's just a common problem with a lot of romances. So the foursome goes over some ground rules and it's revealed that Nerd's a virgin because, of course, the nerd stereotype is a virgin. It's also made 100% clear that Goth is a trans man, which actually might make for some interesting conflict if Goth gets pregnant. But then again, I am completely ignorant to how transitions work, so who knows if he can still get pregnant. I don't know. I'm not educated on that. But something's gotta happen if we still have 174 chapters to go. Good lord. We get a pretty standard amusement park date in the next chapter. Feels like filler, but is a little cute, I guess. And we just get part 2 of the date in the next chapter with one scene where Nerd asks Prep if he's really okay with the whole polyamory thing, which he says he is. And I just gotta say again, I love the colors in this comic. Really, they're really good. The content isn't really for me, so I'm obviously outside of the target demographic, but damn, Reframe Bro's color theory skill is maxed out. Love it. Then we just follow Goth and Jock for a little bit with this very obvious double entendre here, and then we've hit chapter 30. The date ends and the group is unsure who to kiss goodnight. Come on, just take turns kissing all the homies goodnight. Come on. Amateurs. Next chapter, Goth and Prep are just being gay. Which is the whole point of the comic, I guess. But I think I finally understand what that commenter meant by fluff. But let me pull up the definition. Fluff in writing is anything that doesn't add value to a piece. It includes wordy phrases, empty cliches or generalities, and needless repetition or digression. It annoys search engines as well as readers and doesn't belong in your content. Yeah, sounds about right. I really want to know how we got 200 fucking chapters of this, though. 200? Prep goes to stay over at Jock's for the night and realizes how dense he is, so hey, there's some character development. Goth explains his feelings for Prep with these fucking names. Goth explains his feelings for Prep were pretty obvious the whole time. Prep bumps into Nerd at the library and they study together. And in chapter 35, we finally have our first conflict. Wow. Nerd is falling behind in his class and might get the boot. Okay, we might be going somewhere now. Also, there's a character, aside from the professor, who we haven't seen before, who's too designed to be a background character, and it's a girl. In my gay boy comic? Nuh-uh. We'll see if she's going to make another appearance or not. I don't know. So, Nerd is comforted by his boyfriends in the next chapter.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
And I gotta say, this is the gayest panel so far. No, not that one. Yeah, that one. The next chapter is just part 2 of the dudes comforting Nerd, and then they decide to make a study group for exams, which they take in the next chapter. The pace is finally picking up a little bit. Interested to see how they do. Not really. I kind of wanted to drop this comic about 20 chapters ago, but I wanted to check it out because of the controversies. It really isn't controversial at all. Just some minor things the author did in the past, and I realized the irony of using the word minor to describe said things. Above all, I'm just bored. There are more engaging romances out there, but hey, some people like the cute fluff ooh-woo shit. And if you do, this one's for you, you know? The main issue I have with this is just an issue with me, not the work itself. I am not the target demographic. Reading through the comments on this webtoon, though, there are a lot of people that love it, and I think that's great. You should never seek validation for liking something. Just enjoy whatever you want, and someone calls you cringe or whatever because of it, fuck them. I am going to soldier on to chapter 50 for this video, though. the 1/4 mark. So in chapter 40, it's Pride Month, and Nerd and Jock never went. Goth went once, and Prep is an expert, because of course, if one of them would be an expert, it'd be Prep. Okay, I get where the criticism of the portrayal of stereotypes of gay men comes in, and let's be honest, once again, like I said earlier, there are people out there who are in fact just like Prep, and if they see themselves in this comic and relate to and enjoy this character though, hey, I think that's a good thing. But we do get more details about these characters' sexualities in this chapter if you care about that sort of thing. As stated before, Goth is trans. Turns out Jock is bi and Prep is just regular gay. And thanks to the comments, Nerd is pansexual. Keep him out of the kitchen. I kid. I actually have no fucking idea what a pansexual is. Nor do I really care to look it up. You know, just you do you, boo-boo. So the guys go drinking and encounter another guy. He joins them and we get a silly fourth wall break. Oh, that's so silly. Aren't you a silly Billy, huh? I really don't want to read this anymore. So then they make plans to go to the beach, and Reef Rainbow must really, really like twice. There's also some self-awareness of the beach episode trope, which just continues in the next chapter and the next chapter, which has this panel, which I love. And then there's another chapter at the beach. The beach date ends, and then we see Prep and Jock go shopping. Nothing happens in this chapter. They continue shopping in the next chapter. Prep buys Jock some new shoes. Holy shit, he bought him some shoes! Wow. Oh my god. Most iconic moments in fiction. It's right up there with the Bayonet activating in Berserk. I'm sorry, guys. I'm losing my fucking mind here. Anyway, next chapter, Nerd goes roller skating with Prep and Goth, and as always, Prep is clumsy. Poor bastard. Then Nerd takes Jock skating, dragging Goth along once more, and we find out that Nerd is a bit conniving, hopefully foreshadowing a villain arc. Please, I am so bored. This is so bored. But Goth picks up on this. Uh-oh. But it's immediately resolved in chapter 50, and where I'm ending this video. I feel like I just read 50 chapters of absolutely nothing, and I understand that's sort of the appeal of this whole slice of life genre. I, however, feel like the majority of these chapters could have been cute little 4 to 6 panel shorts Reef Rainbow posted on Twitter. Fuck you, Elon, we're never calling it X. Anyway, the dynamics between the characters is non-confrontational and everyone gets along. I think that a story about a polyamorous relationship would be a perfect place to write conflict, however Boyfriends has none. The best slice of life / romances usually have some sort of overarching narrative or subplot to keep the readers invested. Even bad ones understand this. As for some examples, there was the recently super successful Bocchi the Rock, a slice of life about a girl using music to get over her social anxiety. Not a lot happened, but there was a plot. One of my favorite anime ever, Chihaya Furu, is just a high school romance about professional karate players, which is a really cool Japanese card game. Season 4 when? Why has the manga not been officially translated and published in the West? Why? Anyway, a bad show, like Rent a Girlfriend, there's this overarching narrative of the main character hiding the fact that he's an insufferable incel. I mean, using a rental girlfriend service. God, I hate that fucking guy. Can't stop watching, though. I don't know what it is. It's like bad reality TV. Like, Anyway, the main issue with Boyfriends that I have is that in the first fourth that I read, there's practically zero conflict, and if there is, it's resolved immediately. I get that's not necessarily the appeal of this genre. It's supposed to be cute and cozy, but basic writing is exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, right? We all learned this in high school English class. Now, actually inserting a conflict into the narrative isn't always necessarily going to save your story. Just look at Lightbringer. It's me, I'm a Lightbringer. Check out that video in the card and I'll put it in the end screen too. If you can't write a good plot, write good characters. Which is another issue I have with Boyfriends, is that the characters lack depth. I read 1/4 of the story. I couldn't tell you much outside of these characters' names being perfect to describe them in one word. Honestly, I do really believe the best character is Goth because he is so over this shit, and so am I. If you like this story, hey, that's perfectly fine. I don't hate it or anything, it's just not for me. I'd give the first fourth of this comic a 4 out of 10. Just kind of put me to sleep. Now on to the art. Alright, since this is an art channel, it's time for the art review. I actually really like the art in this comic. The style is what I expect from a modern era LGBT story, very Tumblr aesthetic. The characters are cartoony but very clearly legible. The designs are good. Reframe Bro knows what they're doing with panel composition and even uses the webtoon format to their advantage by adding negative space between panels for a better rhythm. My one criticism is how minimal the backgrounds are, and that's par for the course in webtoon. But when the backgrounds are there, they're solid, nothing mind-blowing. Kind of a funny comment coming from me because drawing architecture is my worst nightmare. Fucking straight lines. But, it's solid work. A little too much with blank backgrounds to the point where it's noticeable, but it fits the aesthetic of the comic. The presentation on Webtoon is something I talked about earlier, but once again, I hate the infinite scroll format. Like I said earlier, I post my comic old school style over on my website. This down and only down motion of webtoons is like a knife in the heart of this graphic design major. I would call myself a graphic designer, but job market's all dried up. Anyway, whatever. Page layout is by far the most overlooked tool in comics. A good page layout can really drive home the points of a narrative. I do believe there was a published book of this series, or two, so I'll have to see how they rearrange things there. But overall, I give the art an 8 out of 10. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but the skills have got to be recognized here. And man, do I love the colors. Anyway, guys, that was Boyfriends. Or at least the first 50 chapters of Boyfriends. If you want a part 2, let's get this video to 300 likes. This is by far the most controversial webtoon ever. There's some things from Reframe Bow's past worth one single eyebrow raise, and that's about it. Oh, and there's also something about the ads for this. Like, I don't know, I'll have to take a look at them for part 2, but only if you like this video. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, YouTube stuff, and what should I review next? We should review this comic called Doomsayer. It's really, really bad. Oh, we'll just have to wait till April for that one. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.